A black man fixing a $3 million engine? That's like letting a janitor perform brain surgery. Catherine Blake's laugh cuts through the parking garage as she rips the wrench from Franklin Edwards' hand and hurls it across concrete, metal clanging against cinder block like a death sentence. She's the CEO, white, Ivy League MBA, designer suit dripping old money and older prejudice, standing over Franklin like he's something filthy that crawled up from the basement. Franklin is 41, black, 10 years swallowing insults in maintenance while executives pretend he doesn't exist. He's kneeling beside her dead prototype engine, the one her Stanford and MIT engineers couldn't fix in 3 days. Catherine pulls out her phone. Her smile could strip paint. Fix this engine and I'll marry you. 3 minutes. She taps the screen. The countdown begins. 3 o'clock, 2:59, 2:58. Franklin's hands move toward the engine, and what happens in the next 180 seconds will end her career forever. Careful with the oil, Franklin says quietly, still not looking up. His voice carries that specific calm that unsettles people accustomed to reactions they can control. Catherine's entourage materializes. Stephanie Morgan clutching her iPad like emotional support. Gregory Coleman radiating the nervous energy of a chief engineer who hasn't engineered a solution in 72 hours. 2 nameless junior executives cosplaying importance. Is that thing going to squat here all week? Catherine gestures at the Mustang with vague disgust. Executive parking, not auto zone. It's Mr. Bennett's car, restoration project. Franklin slides out, wiping hands on a faded red mechanic's rag. Gold embroidery barely visible. Webb and Son. His father's Rag, wrong surname now. Franklin took his wife's name at marriage. A small revolution HR still hasn't processed. But memory doesn't care about paperwork. Catherine's eyes skip over the rag. Objects wielded by maintenance workers don't have histories worth noting. Harold lets you play with his midlife crisis? Her tone suggests transgression she can't quite articulate. How democratic. 20 feet away sits her $3 million problem. The prototype electric engine that should be revolutionizing Q4 earnings has been corpse cold for 3 days. Tomorrow's investor presentation approaches like sentencing, and her MIT-educated engineers have exhausted their vocabulary of failure. Software incompatibility, voltage regulation cascade, thermal management protocols. The engine won't even click. Catherine's Patek Philippe reads 6:43 p.m. 11 hours of meetings condensed into board member frowns and passive-aggressive Slack messages. You, she pivots with predatory focus. Your maintenance? Senior technician, 10 years this November. So you fix things when they break. That's the general idea, yes, ma'am. The ma'am detonates silently. Catherine has clawed her way to this CEO title through a gauntlet that still introduces her as female CEO in trade publications, adjective undermining noun. And here's this man in stained coveralls making courtesy feel like mockery. That engine, she points. My team calls it unfixable. Manufacturing defect, incompatible components, something about voltage. Honestly, their excuses have stopped registering as English. Franklin stands, folding the red rag with geometric precision, 6'2" but practiced at occupying less space, survival adaptation from youth. You want me to look? Can you? Not hope, setup. Possibly. Catherine's laugh cuts glass. Possibly. I'm paying 6-figure salaries for possibly. Her entourage echoes her amusement on cue, trained SEALs in business casual. Franklin approaches the prototype without asking permission. It's beautiful engineering. Carbon fiber musculature, aerospace aluminum skeleton, sensor arrays worth more than his annual salary. He circles slowly, hands clasped, not touching yet, just observing. Catherine follows, irritation compounding with each silent second. She needs friction, resistance, something to leverage. Fix this engine, she announces, volume pitched for audience, and I'll marry you. Her entourage freezes. Even by Catherine's standards, this registers as unforced error. She accelerates into the skid. Hell, I'll make you partner, 20% equity. Smile sharpening. The American dream, right? Work hard, marry rich, bypass the whole meritocracy inconvenience? Franklin stops. 3 full seconds, he simply observes her. No challenge, no anger, just seeing in a way that makes Catherine check her reflection in the Mercedes window. 3 minutes, he says. I'm sorry? 3 minutes. I'll have it running. Catherine's smile reaches predatory. This is the overconfidence she can eviscerate. 3 minutes. You're genuinely serious. Yes, ma'am. And when you fail, because you will fail, then I fail. Franklin's tone remains level. But when I succeed, I want something. Already established. Marriage and partnership. Catherine brandishes her phone, timer app opening. Fair warning, I'm a nightmare spouse. Not marriage, not partnership. Franklin kneels, examining connection points. Just acknowledge I exist. The words land soft but heavy. Catherine's performance cracks, microscopic fissure immediately plastered over. Clock starts on my mark, 3 minutes. If that engine isn't purring, you're terminated. I don't care whose classic car you're restoring. Franklin selects a single torque wrench from his belt, not the full kit, one tool. His father's voice surfaces from 26 years deep. Engines don't lie, son. People do. Trust the machine. Question the man. He meets Catherine's gaze one final time, steady, unimpressed. Start timing. Catherine's thumb hits the screen. 3 o'clock begins counting down. Her smirk calcifies as Franklin's hands move toward the engine with a certainty that injects the first molecule of doubt into her cardiovascular system. Catherine holds her phone like a weapon, timer displayed for maximum theatrical impact. 3 minutes. Starting now. The garage fills with silence thicker than the oil puddles scattered across concrete. Franklin works without hesitation. No frantic energy, no desperate diagnosis dance. His movements carry surgical precision, each gesture economical, purposeful. Camera angles would alternate if this were film. Franklin's grease-dark hands navigating aluminum landscape. Catherine's smile wobbling at edges. Timer bleeding seconds, 2:52, 2:44, 2:31. He removes 7 bolts in sequence only a systems expert would recognize, not random disassembly, targeted extraction following logic invisible to observers. Catherine leans toward Gregory. What's he doing? Gregory's shrug confesses his ignorance louder than words could. Franklin disconnects a module, holds a connection point toward fluorescent light, extracts something with needle-nose pliers. A metal shard, smaller than a pill, glints between steel jaws. He examines it with the focus oncologists reserve for biopsy slides. His jaw sets. Recognition. This wasn't mechanical failure. This was sabotage. He pockets the shard. Reconnects components with the same methodical precision. No wasted motion, no double-checking. Muscle memory synthesized with engineering knowledge into something approaching art. 2:04, 1:58, 1:43. Catherine's entourage shifts weight foot to foot. Stephanie types furiously on her iPad, probably updating the board on this bizarre detour. Gregory's forehead gleams with sweat despite the garage's refrigerated air. Franklin stands at 2:51, wiping hands on the red rag, folds it, tucks it into his belt. Turn the key. Catherine blinks. What? Turn the key. 4 words, flat delivery. She approaches the prototype like it might detonate, slides into the driver's seat with visible reluctance. Her manicured finger hovers over the ignition. The engine purrs to life. Not sputters, not coughs, purrs. Smoother than it ever ran during testing, a mechanical symphony of precision engineering finally allowed to perform as designed. Absolute silence from the human gallery. Catherine's face drains color in real time as reality performs hostile takeover of assumptions. Franklin produces the metal shard, holds it between thumb and forefinger. You've got a bigger problem than a broken engine. Catherine's phone erupts. Harold Bennett calling. She can't look away from that tiny piece of sabotaged metal. Catherine's voice emerges strangled. Who are you? Franklin's response comes flat, factual. Basement maintenance, level B6, employee ID 4782, 10 years. Her face betrays the truth. She has zero idea who works below the executive stratosphere. The invisible people who keep her empire functional might as well be algorithms. Stephanie's fingers dance across her iPad, pulling personnel files. Her voice pitches high with discovery. Franklin Edwards, senior maintenance technician, MIT, dropout. She glances up, confused how those words coexist. Holder of 3 registered patents assigned to Blake Automotive Industries. Catherine's pupils dilate. What patents? Hybrid torque vectoring, regenerative brake optimization, and... Stephanie's voice trails into disbelief. Modular electric motor architecture, filed 2015. The garage tilts on its axis. Catherine's revolutionary engine, the one she's been touring industry conferences describing as Blake Automotive Innovation, is built on Franklin Edwards's intellectual property. The man she just offered to marry as a joke owns the skeleton her entire Q4 strategy hangs on. Those patents belong to Blake Automotive. Catherine's voice discovers emergency authority. Standard employment agreement. All employee inventions become company property. Franklin pulls his phone from coveralls, taps twice. A compact projector emerges. Consumer tech, nothing fancy. He aims it at the garage's white cinder block wall. Blueprints materialize, glowing blue-white in the fluorescent dimness. Original designs, time-stamped June 2014. Franklin's voice remains neutral, but something harder crystallizes beneath. Before I was hired, before I signed anything, the projected schematics show undeniable DNA. Franklin's work forms the foundation of Blake Automotive's electric division. But the patents filed in company records credit Blake R&D team, supervised by Gregory Coleman. Gregory goes still, rabbit-sensing wolf. Notice the differences? Franklin zooms in on a connection array. My design used distributed processing. Your filed patent uses centralized. My thermal management was passive cooling. Yours is active. But the core architecture, 87% identical. Catherine's VP of Legal, summoned by Stephanie's frantic text, materializes from an elevator, phone pressed to ear, already performing damage control calculus. Franklin continues his presentation like he's teaching engineering fundamentals. I pitched these to Blake Automotive in October 2014. Meeting with your father, actually. He was CEO then. A flashback would insert here if this were visual medium. Franklin at 24, younger but same steady hands, sitting across from Catherine's father in an office that screamed old money and older attitudes. Franklin's mother in hospital, stage 4, treatment costs metastasizing faster than her cancer. He needed money. Desperately. The kind of desperation that makes bad contracts look like lifelines. Your father offered $15,000, one-time payment. Franklin's voice stays level, but something cold bleeds through. Take it or leave it. No royalties, no credit, no negotiation. I had 72 hours to decide. Catherine knows this playbook. Her father wrote it. Find desperate talent, extract maximum value, offer minimum compensation. Legal, but ruthless. The Blake family philosophy, business is war by other means. You signed an NDA. Catherine grasps for solid ground. This conversation violates NDAs signed under economic duress are challengeable. Franklin clicks to another slide. Especially when the signer was 24, had no legal representation, and was explicitly told no lawyer would change the terms. His eyes find Gregory. Your chief engineer witnessed the meeting, told me lawyers were for people who could afford pride. Gregory's face suggests active cardiovascular event. Franklin advances slides. Here's what Blake Automotive filed 6 months later. My architecture with minor modifications, enough to claim independent development, not enough to actually improve functionality. Another click. Here's the performance data. Your version generates 12% more heat, 17% more vibration, and costs 40% more to manufacture. The projector hums in silence as executives absorb what Franklin's really saying. Blake Automotive stole his work, then made it worse. The sabotaged component. Franklin produces the metal shard. Custom machined, not manufacturer defect, intentional insertion. Someone who knew exactly which connection to compromise. His gaze sweeps the assembled crowd. Someone with system-level access? Catherine's phone buzzes. She glances down, face going slack. Email subject line visible. Patent infringement lawsuit. Edwards v. Blake Automotive Industries. Sender, Rachel Harrison Edwards, ESQ. That's... Catherine's lawyer grabs her phone, reads, goes pale. That's a very expensive lawsuit. Franklin nods. My wife's an attorney. Immigration law mostly, but she has friends in intellectual property. Good friends. He powers down the projector. They've been building this case for 3 years. Every interaction documented, every dismissal recorded, every time I submitted improvement suggestions that got filed without acknowledgement. Stephanie frantically scrolls her iPad. There are dozens of incident reports, signed by Franklin, stamped by HR. Her voice climbs octaves. Why didn't anyone escalate these? Because Franklin was invisible. Maintenance staff don't get escalation. They get filed. Catherine finds her footing, deploys corporate survival instinct. What do you want? Name a number. This isn't about money anymore. Everything's about money. Catherine's certainty returns. Everyone has a price. You're angry, I understand, but angry doesn't pay mortgages. Franklin's laugh emerges genuine, surprising everyone, including himself. I paid off my mortgage 4 years ago. My wife makes partner-track salary. Our daughter's college fund is fully funded. He steps closer, not threatening but present in a way that makes Catherine retreat half a step. I don't need your money, Miss Blake. I need my work acknowledged. I need the lies corrected. The patents are filed. Public record. We can't just... You can file corrections. You can credit original inventors. You can stop pretending innovation happens in executive suites. Franklin's voice stays quiet but gains density. Or my wife's friends can do it through discovery, publicly, with depositions. Catherine's mind runs scenarios, all of them expensive. Patent litigation costs millions even when you win. When you lose, when the world discovers Blake Automotive's flagship technology was stolen from a black maintenance worker the company systematically ignored, the reputational damage becomes existential. There's another element. Franklin pulls out his phone again. Different app this time. I've been in discussions with Electron Motors. Catherine's pupils contract. Electron Motors, Blake's primary competitor, the scrappy upstart stealing market share with actual innovation instead of marketing. They've offered me Chief Innovation Officer, full research lab, $50 million for exclusive licensing of my patents. Franklin lets that number detonate. And they're very interested, in my opinion, of Blake Automotive's business practices. The garage feels airless. Catherine built her CEO tenure on the promise of electric dominance. If Franklin walks to Electron Motors with his patents and his testimony, Blake Automotive becomes a cautionary tale in business school ethics courses. You can't! Catherine's voice cracks. The NDA, challengeable. My wife's already filed the motion. Franklin pockets his phone. I'm not trying to destroy Blake Automotive. I'm trying to fix what's broken. But if you force me to choose between being invisible and being vindicated... He shrugs. I choose vindication. Stephanie's iPad chimes. She glances down, face confirming bad news. Twitter. Someone posted about the lawsuit. It's spreading. Catherine snatches the device. #Ashford exposed. No, wrong company. #Blake exposed trends with video clips, security camera footage of her splashing oil on Franklin, audio of her marriage taunt, screenshots of the patent comparisons. The internet has decided this is David versus Goliath, and Goliath is wearing Armani. Her phone explodes with notifications. Board members, investors, PR team in full meltdown. Franklin watches her world catch fire with the detached interest of someone who's already made peace with consequences. For what it's worth, Miss Blake, you're not the disease. You're the symptom. Catherine looks up, mascara smudging. What? The system taught you people like me are invisible. Taught you innovation comes from pedigree instead of talent. Taught you respect is reserved for people who look like they belong in executive suites. Franklin's voice gentles, which somehow makes it cut deeper. I'm not angry at you specifically. I'm tired of the specifically in general. Rachel Edwards, Franklin's wife, emerges from the elevator bay. 38, sharp-eyed, carrying a litigation bag that suggests she came directly from court. Mrs. Edwards, Franklin's attorney. She extends a hand Catherine doesn't shake. We have very good news for my client. Catherine pulls Franklin aside, away from cameras and witnesses and the wife who's clearly running this operation. How much? Her voice strips away pretense. Cut the morality performance. Everyone has a number. What's yours? Franklin meets her gaze without flinching. This stopped being about numbers around the time you decided humiliation was appropriate management. She shifts strategies, desperation dressed as calculation. Partner, real equity, not stock options, 20% of Blake Automotive. Her eyes search his face for the greed she assumes lives in everyone. Voting shares. And the marriage joke? Catherine's jaw sets. I meant it, not the joke part, the offer part. She glances toward Rachel, then back. Marry me. Actual legal marriage. We file the patents as joint marital property. You drop the lawsuit. We both win. Franklin's laugh escapes involuntarily. You're serious. I'm practical. Catherine's voice hardens with the logic that's guided her entire career. Contractual merger. You get legitimacy, wealth, platform. I keep my company. We don't even have to like each other. Rich people have loveless marriages constantly. I'm already married. Catherine blinks, processes. Her eyes track to Rachel Edwards standing 30 feet away, expensive litigation bag and wedding ring catching light. That's your wife. 15 years this June. She's an immigration attorney. Took her last name because Edwards sounds better than Webb and because small revolutions matter. Franklin's voice carries something close to affection. She's also been quietly building this case for 3 years. Catherine's mental chessboard updates with this new piece. The documented incidents, the recordings, every dismissive interaction, every time security stopped me in areas I had clearance for, every meeting where my suggestions got repackaged as someone else's insights 3 weeks later. Franklin crosses his arms. Rachel's specialty is pattern of discrimination cases, proving systematic bias through accumulated evidence. That was your plan all along. Catherine's voice mixes anger with reluctant admiration. Play invisible while documenting everything. I wasn't playing, I was invisible. Franklin's correction lands gently but firmly. You just never noticed the difference. Rachel approaches, sensing the private conversation has reached its conclusion. She sets her litigation bag on the hood of Catherine's Mercedes. Power move, subtle but unmistakable. Miss Blake, my firm has prepared 2 paths forward. Catherine straightens, CEO mask reassembling. I'm listening. Path 1, protracted litigation. Patent reversion, punitive damages, civil rights violation investigation. Public discovery phase where every internal email gets scrutinized by journalists. Rachel pulls out her tablet, displays a timeline. 18 months minimum. Legal fees in the 8-figure range. Reputation damage, unquantifiable. Catherine's throat works. She knows this path ends with her termination, regardless of legal outcome. Path 2, immediate patent correction filings, public acknowledgement of Franklin's contribution, retroactive compensation at fair market licensing rates, and, this is non-negotiable, systemic reforms to how Blake Automotive identifies and credits innovation from non-executive employees. That's, Catherine calculates rapidly, that's tens of millions in back compensation, 32 million by our estimation. Rachel's smile doesn't reach her eyes. Considerably less than litigation costs, and you get to control the narrative. Franklin adds quietly, plus I don't take my patents to Electron Motors. Catherine processes this. Path 2 is expensive but survivable. Path 1 is existential. And if I refuse both? Rachel closes her tablet. Then we proceed with litigation. Franklin accepts the Electron Motors position, and Blake Automotive spends the next 2 years explaining why innovation fled to your competitor. She pauses. Also, the security footage of you deliberately splashing oil on my husband while mocking him, that's already been shared with 3 major news outlets. They're deciding whether it's newsworthy or just viral. Catherine feels the trap fully close. This was never about marriage or money. This was about forcing systematic change through leverage she couldn't ignore. The marriage taunt, Franklin says softly, was your fatal error. Made this personal, gave Rachel the emotional hook for the discrimination case. He almost smiles. You were right about one thing, Miss Blake. I didn't speak your language. Rachel finishes the thought. But now we're teaching you his... Catherine's phone vibrates. Harold Bennett calling. Again. The board chairman who's watched her father build Blake Automotive through ruthless extraction and now watches her fumble the succession. Rachel's tablet projects onto the cinderblock wall, replacing Franklin's blueprints with financial forensics. Blake Automotive's entire electric vehicle division, currently valued at $320 million, rests on 3 patents invented by my client. Her laser pointer circles the relevant documents. Patents fraudulently attributed to your R&D team. Gregory Coleman, chief engineer and increasingly obvious co-conspirator, interrupts with corporate lawyer confidence. The NDA is ironclad. Mr. Edwards signed voluntarily. He was compensated per the agreement terms. Rachel swivels, predator noticing prey. Signed under economic duress. His mother was dying. Treatment costs exceeded $400,000. Blake Automotive offered $15,000 with 72 hours to decide. She advances on Gregory. You were in that meeting. You told Franklin, and I quote, lawyers are for people who can afford principles. Gregory's face confirms this before his mouth can deny it. Economic duress invalidates contracts. Rachel clicks to a new slide, legal precedent. especially when the signing party was 24, unrepresented, and explicitly discouraged from seeking counsel. We have 12 employment attorneys prepared to testify about systematic exploitation of desperate inventors. Catherine's lawyer, corporate specialist named Donald Morrison, just arrived and already drowning, interjects weakly. Even if the original NDA is challenged, the patents were filed properly through USPTO, legal transfer of intellectual property. Transfer implies consent. Rachel's smile sharpens. Consent implies genuine choice. Franklin had no choice, and Blake Automotive knew it. She projects internal emails. Gregory Coleman to Catherine's father, dated October 2014, found another hungry genius. MIT dropout needs money fast, won't negotiate hard. The garage collectively inhales. Written proof of predatory intent. Catherine finds her voice. 5%. Retroactive royalties at 5% of net revenue from the electric division. Franklin shakes his head once. Full patent reversion, or I license exclusively to Electron Motors. Catherine's world tilts further. You're bluffing. Franklin nods to Rachel, who projects new documents. Signed term sheet from Electron Motors, Chief Innovation Officer position. Salary, $450,000 annually. Signing bonus, $10 million. Exclusive patent licensing, $50 million over 5 years. Start date, December 1st. That's, Catherine calculates frantically, that's 3 weeks away. Contingent on patent reversion. Franklin's voice stays maddeningly calm. If Blake Automotive returns my patents, I can license them to whoever I choose. If you fight, they stay tied up in litigation, and Electron Motors withdraws the offer. It's elegant trap design. Franklin wins whether Blake cooperates or resists. Either he gets his patents back and massive compensation, or Blake bleeds millions fighting while he becomes industry legend anyway. Stephanie's iPad chimes. The board is convening emergency session. They want Catherine on video conference now. Catherine ignores it, locked in stare down with Franklin. You'll destroy Blake Automotive. Hundreds of jobs lost. No, Franklin's voice gentles unexpectedly. I'll correct an injustice. Blake's electric division can license my patents fairly, same terms as any competitor, or develop their own technology. He pauses. You have talented people. Gregory's smart when he's not busy exploiting others. But you've built your empire on stolen foundation. I'm just asking you to acknowledge the theft. Rachel adds, the investor presentation tomorrow. You're unveiling the Model E sedan. 87% of its drivetrain is Franklin's architecture. Her laser pointer highlights technical specifications. Without proper licensing, every vehicle sold constitutes ongoing patent infringement. Liability compounds exponentially. Catherine's phone erupts with simultaneous calls. Board members, investors, reporters who've already scented blood. She silences it, attention fragmenting across catastrophic scenarios. There's more. Rachel projects security footage onto the wall. Timestamp reads 9:23 p.m., 3 days ago. The grainy image shows Gregory Coleman in the prototype garage, alone. He removes a panel, inserts something small, replaces the panel. 23 seconds total. Catherine goes statue still. What is that? Your chief engineer sabotaging the prototype. Franklin produces the metal shard from his pocket. This component, wedged into the connection array to create intermittent failure. He looks at Gregory. You knew I'd fix it. Knew I'd be blamed when it failed initially. Knew Catherine would never believe the invisible maintenance guy could diagnose what her expensive engineers couldn't. Gregory's silence confirms everything. Why? Catherine's voice barely whispers. Rachel answers. Because Franklin filed an internal complaint 6 months ago about patent misattribution. Gregory's career depends on maintaining the fiction that he led the innovation team. Another document appears, Gregory's employment contract, with bonuses tied directly to patent filings credited to his team. He's earned $1.2 million in patent bonuses for Franklin's work. The garage audience, a dozen employees now gathered, words spreading through basement levels, murmurs with anger. Tommy Richardson, Franklin's closest colleague, physically restrains himself from approaching Gregory. Catherine's world completes its inversion. She built her CEO identity on electric innovation that was stolen, defended by an engineer who sabotaged prototypes to protect his fraudulent reputation while the actual genius worked invisible in her basement. Stephanie's voice cuts through. Catherine, Harold's on speakerphone. He says it's urgent. The phone on Stephanie's iPad crackles to life before Catherine can decide. Harold Bennett's voice fills the garage, amplified and authoritative. "Catherine, you're terminated. Mr. Edwards, we'd like to discuss interim leadership." The security footage plays on loop, projected large enough for the growing crowd to witness. Gregory Coleman's sabotage captured in high-definition digital certainty. But Rachel cues another clip, this one with audio. Catherine's voice, recorded in her office 3 days prior. "If the prototype fails at the presentation, we blame maintenance. Fire the dead weight, spin it as quality control." Gregory's response: "Edwards works weekends, easy scapegoat." The assembled employees gasp collectively. Franklin was the planned sacrifice for Catherine's failures. Tommy Richardson pulls his phone, shares the footage to the company Slack channel before anyone can stop him. Within 90 seconds, it escapes containment. Twitter, LinkedIn, industry forums. Within 5 minutes, Blake exposed trends nationally. Catherine watches her career immolate in real time via notification avalanche. Every phone in the garage chimes simultaneously as the footage spreads through Blake Automotive's internal networks. Employees on different floors, different buildings, different states, all witnessing their CEO's casual cruelty. News vans arrive outside corporate headquarters 8 blocks away. Rachel's phone shows live feeds, reporters already crafting narratives about corporate exploitation and systemic racism disguised as meritocracy. Franklin addresses the crowd that's grown to 30-plus employees, maintenance staff, junior engineers, security personnel who usually remain invisible. 10 years I worked here, fixed your problems, improved your designs, never asked for credit." His voice cracks microscopically. "Just wanted to be seen." Spontaneous applause erupts, not polite golf claps, but genuine sustained recognition. Technicians who've felt invisible their entire careers witness one of their own forcing accountability. Catherine stands isolated, her executive buffer collapsed. Stephanie steps away first, subtle, but everyone notices. Then Gregory's assistant, then 2 junior executives who calculate survival odds and choose distance. Catherine's phone displays her personal assistant's resignation text, then her driver's. Corporate loyalty evaporates faster than liquid nitrogen. Franklin approaches Catherine, produces the red mechanic's rag from his belt. The embroidered web and sun catches light. "My father taught me something." He holds the rag between them, not offering, just presenting. "Dignity isn't given, it's insisted upon." Catherine stares at the faded fabric, understanding finally what she's been looking at for 10 years without seeing. Legacy, pride, identity. The things money can't purchase and title can't substitute. "I never meant..." Catherine's voice discovers unfamiliar territory called genuine remorse. "This wasn't personal." "That's worse." Franklin's response comes soft but unyielding. "Personal cruelty has passion. Systemic invisibility is just efficient." He pockets the rag. "You treated me like a broken machine, disposable, replaceable." Harold Bennett's voice emerges from speakerphone again, this time addressing the garage. "All employees present are dismissed for the day with full pay. Executive leadership will be making significant announcements tomorrow." A pause. "Catherine, security will escort you to collect your belongings." Catherine's Patek Philippe reflects fluorescent light as she checks the time. 7:18 p.m. 35 minutes since she splashed oil on Franklin Edwards. 35 minutes to lose everything. 2 security guards materialize. Not the executive protection team. Regular building security who know Franklin by name and Catherine not at all. Rachel's voice cuts through Catherine's dissociation. "Miss Blake, you'll be receiving formal documentation regarding the civil lawsuit. I encourage you to retain separate counsel. Blake Automotive's legal team has conflicts of interest now." Catherine walks toward the elevator between security escorts, past employees who've already stopped meeting her eyes. The CEO who entered this garage 35 minutes ago no longer exists. Franklin watches her disappear into the elevator, no triumph in his expression, no satisfaction, just exhausted relief that truth finally weighs more than title. Tommy Richardson grips Franklin's shoulder. "Drink? Later." Franklin's eyes track to Rachel. "We've got work to finish." 21 days later, Franklin Edwards enters Blake Automotive's executive suite wearing a peculiar combination. Tailored charcoal suit with his navy coveralls layered over it. Symbolic bridge between worlds he's about to redefine. The board offered interim CEO status while they restructure leadership and culture. Franklin negotiated 3 conditions: full patent reversion, systemic reform authority, and the explicit title interim with 6-month maximum tenure. He's not here to be CEO. He's here to fix what's broken. His first executive action: profit-sharing program for technicians and engineers. If Blake Automotive profits from innovation, innovators profit from Blake Automotive. Second action: mentorship program. Recruiting underprivileged engineering students, full scholarships, with stipend for living expenses. No student should face Franklin's impossible choice between education and dying parents. Third action: transparent patent credit system. Every invention documented with actual inventor names, regardless of hierarchy. Executives can't claim credit for work they supervised but didn't create. The company culture shifts tectonically. Engineers who've spent careers invisible suddenly see themselves in meeting minutes. Productivity increases 18% in 3 weeks. Turns out people work harder when recognition is possible. Franklin keeps an office on B6, next to his old maintenance bay. Splits time between executive suite and garage. The coveralls aren't costume, he still fixes engines, still teaches junior mechanics, still wears the red rag tucked in his belt. Catherine faces consequences that feel disproportionate until you remember consequences are usually invisible for people like her. Criminal charges for sabotage conspiracy. Gregory Coleman already took a plea deal, testified against her. Civil lawsuit for patent fraud. Industry blacklisting so thorough she can't get consulting work. But Franklin does something unexpected. He visits her. The coffee shop is neutral territory in suburban anonymity, far from downtown's glass towers. Catherine arrives early, wearing Target clothes instead of Armani, looking simultaneously diminished and somehow more real. "Why?" she asks when Franklin sits. "Because you're a symptom, not the disease." Franklin orders black coffee, small victory for a man who spent 10 years drinking breakroom sludge. "The system taught you people like me were invisible. That respect correlates with salary. That innovation happens in executive suites. I still destroyed my career over arrogance. You did." Franklin's agreement comes without satisfaction. "But I'm not here for apology. I'm here to offer a path forward." Catherine's eyes narrow with residual suspicion. "What path?" "Public testimony. You testify against exploitative patent practices. Use your platform, and you still have one, even diminished, for reform. Teach business school case studies on what happens when corporations prioritize extraction over collaboration. You want me to become a cautionary tale. I want you to become accountable with purpose." Franklin leans forward. "You can hide, let lawyers manage your surrender, or you can participate in fixing what you broke." Catherine studies him, searching for the revenge motivation she'd feel in his position. Finds only genuine belief that people can change. "What do you get out of my rehabilitation?" "Precedent." Franklin's voice strengthens. "You're not the first executive who confused authority with merit. Won't be the last. But if Catherine Blake, Ivy League MBA, third-generation automotive royalty, can admit she built success on stolen foundation and actively work for reform," he shrugs. "That's the crack in the dam." 2 weeks later, Catherine's video statement goes viral for different reasons than the security footage. No defensive corporate language, no lawyer-filtered apology. Just Catherine Blake explaining systematically how she exploited desperate inventors, how corporate structures enable theft disguised as employment, how she confused Franklin's quiet competence for incompetence. Business schools bookmark it, ethics courses dissect it. The Harvard Business Review publishes her essay, "How I Stole Millions and Called It Innovation." It doesn't forgive her, but it uses her. Franklin declines permanent CEO position, board practically begs, and instead architects something unprecedented, cooperative ownership model. Engineers and technicians who create innovations own equity proportional to their contributions. Blake Automotive becomes 51% employee-owned. Wall Street analysts predict disaster. Instead, innovation accelerates. Turns out people invent more enthusiastically when they own the results. Franklin returns to maintenance work 3 days weekly. His office displays the red rag in a shadow box, with new embroidery added, Webb and son and daughter. His daughter Taylor, 19, just started MIT, full scholarship funded by the program Franklin created. She's studying mechanical engineering, determined to improve her father's designs. 6 months after the confrontation, Rachel arranges a surprise. Franklin arrives at Blake Automotive to find his old bay transformed. Dedicated innovation lab, state-of-the-art equipment, his name on the door in letters visible from the executive garage. He cries. First time since his mother's funeral. But the real surprise waits inside. 20 young mechanics, diverse as America actually is, wearing coveralls embroidered with their family names. Richardson and daughter, Santos and sons, Anderson and Anderson. A movement born from dignity insisted upon. Tommy Richardson grins. Figured if you could change the world with a wrench and a rag, we could at least change our corner. Franklin teaches them what his father taught him. Engines don't lie, trust the machine, question the man who profits from your ignorance. On the 6-month anniversary, an unexpected package arrives. Return address, Catherine Blake. Inside, a patent filing. New electric motor design, genuinely innovative. Listed inventors, Catherine Blake and Franklin Edwards, with fair equity split and transparent licensing terms. The attached note, learning to speak your language, still have accent but trying. C.B. Franklin files it properly. Not forgiveness, accountability continuing. She'll spend years rebuilding credibility. But she's doing the work. Harold Bennett officially transitions Franklin from interim CEO to Chief Innovation Officer, permanent position. Franklin negotiates salary cap. No Blake Automotive executive can earn more than 5 times the median employee's salary. Himself included. Board resists. He threatens to walk. They capitulate. Blake Automotive's stock dips initially. Investors hate equity redistribution, then rebounds stronger. Talent floods in. Engineers tired of corporate exploitation. Innovators seeking ownership. Students graduating with debt who've heard there's one company that actually values them. The red rag becomes unofficial company symbol. Employees across departments start carrying them. Accountants, marketers, even lawyers. Rachel jokes that Franklin accidentally started a branded merchandise line. He didn't start a merchandise line. He started a reminder. Dignity isn't given. It's insisted upon. Daily. Persistently. With the quiet certainty that truth weighs more than title. 1-year anniversary. Franklin stands before MIT auditorium. 200 students, predominantly engineering majors, faces reflecting America's actual demographic diversity instead of its historical gatekeeping. Guest lecture, Ethics in Innovation. He holds the original red rag, now featured in business ethics textbooks alongside Catherine's testimony and Blake Automotive's cooperative restructuring. My father told me engines don't lie. Franklin's voice carries to the back row without microphone. People do, but people can also change. He pauses, lets that complexity breathe. The question isn't whether you'll face exploitation. The question is whether you'll normalize it. The camera, yes, this lecture is being recorded because Stanford and Caltech and Georgia Tech have already requested access, pans across faces seeing themselves in his story. Black students, Latino students, Asian students, poor white students from rural towns where MIT might as well be Mars. Everyone who's been told implicitly or explicitly that innovation has a specific look. Franklin shares the timeline. Invisible maintenance worker to patent lawsuit to CEO offer to cooperative redesign. Not triumph narrative, but complication narrative. I didn't win, he clarifies. The system that made me invisible still exists. I just forced one company to acknowledge it. Questions follow. A student asks about anger management. How did Franklin work for 10 years without rage consuming him? Rage was there, Franklin admits. But rage is expensive. Costs energy I needed for being excellent at my job. He considers his next words carefully. I stayed because my daughter needed health insurance, because walking away meant Catherine won, because I believed documentation and patience would eventually matter more than immediate satisfaction. Another question. Would he recommend his path? No. Franklin's response surprises them. I'd recommend Rachel's path. My wife didn't wait patiently. She built a case systematically, used legal structures designed for justice, forced confrontation on my timeline. He smiles. Marry someone smarter than you who refuses to accept your invisibility. Catherine Blake enters from the auditorium's rear. Students recognize her. The reformed villain arc has made her identifiable. She doesn't approach the stage, just takes an empty seat in the back row. Franklin nods acknowledgement. She nods back. Not friends, but collaborators in ongoing repair. The lecture concludes with Franklin's daughter Taylor presenting her senior thesis project, Clean Energy Brake System that captures 91% of kinetic energy as electricity. She credits my father who taught me to fix what's broken, including systems that claim they're working fine. Franklin tears up. Rachel squeezes his hand from the audience front row. Final scene shifts to Franklin's garage, the B6 Innovation Lab, now officially named Webb Family Engineering Center. 15 neighborhood kids, ages 8 to 16, learn engine repair on Saturday mornings. Free program, tools provided, snacks included. Franklin teaches carburetor function to a 10-year-old girl whose English carries her mother's Haitian accent. Teaches electrical systems to twins whose parents clean offices downtown. Teaches patience to everyone because precision requires calm. A visitor arrives. CEO of Harrison Dynamics, Fortune 500 automotive supplier. She's 53, black, wearing business casual that cost more than Franklin's monthly salary used to be. Dr. Edwards? She uses his honorary doctorate. MIT awarded it 8 months ago, recognition that arrived a quarter-century late. I'm Jennifer Harrison. I hear you're the best. Franklin wipes hands on the red rag, now duplicated across dozens of young mechanics of all backgrounds carrying their own embroidered versions, a movement that started with dignity insisted upon. I'm someone who never stopped learning. Franklin gestures to a clean workbench. Coffee? They discuss potential partnership as equals. Harrison Dynamics wants to license Franklin's patents fairly, collaborate on next-generation systems, establish mentorship pipeline. She's heard Blake Automotive's cooperative model is revolutionizing retention and innovation, wants similar structure. Franklin agrees to consult, not joining another corporation. He's learned that lesson. But teaching willing companies how to value people over pedigree. Franklin watches the kids return to their engine work, their hands moving with the same careful precision he's spent a lifetime teaching. The garage hums with possibility, not just mechanical, but human. The kind of possibility that happens when people stop being invisible. He thinks about Catherine Blake sitting in that MIT auditorium, about the long road from villain to reformed advocate. He thinks about his father's rag, now multiplied across dozens of young hands. He thinks about the system that tried to keep him basement-bound, and how one moment of insisting on dignity changed everything. The red rags hang on the wall like flags of a quiet revolution. Engines run on fuel, legacies run on respect. If this story moved you, hit that like button. It helps us share more stories of underdogs who refuse to stay invisible. Subscribe so you never miss another story about people who changed the system instead of accepting it. And drop a comment below. What's one moment where you had to insist on your own dignity? What would you fix in your workplace if you had Franklin's courage? Your story matters. Share it with us. Because the world changes when we stop accepting invisibility and start demanding respect.